Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Money seized in pyramid scheme when Trinidad and Tobago was returned by the Horquetta Police. This story takes the lead in our 950th edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday 25th September 2020. Details after this important message.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Less than 24 hours after he and his officers seized $22 million in cash from a pyramid scheme in Horquetta, Police Commissioner Gary Griffith wants to know who has ordered the return of the funds. TV6's Alicia Boucher has the details.
It was just yesterday that police descended on the house at Kathleen Warner Drive, Phase 1, Horquetta, and proceeded to arrest 9 persons and seize large amounts of cash. Following the operation, Commissioner Griffith promised to take action against establishments involved in similar transactions and seize their funds as evidence. But in a statement today, Commissioner Griffith says preliminary investigations show that the money was handed back to the operator of the scheme this morning without his knowledge or those of his deputy commissioners. He says he finds it very suspicious that $22 million in cash was seized, and within hours the money was checked and a decision made to give it back without the input of the Financial Intelligence Bureau of the TTPS. He said investigators only completed a count of the money at 12:30 a.m. today. He said the investigation at the highest level of the police service is to determine if any criminal or disciplinary action is to be taken against any officer. The commissioner argues that the money was handed back without a proper investigation to determine whether it was counterfeit, and no proper investigation was done as to the source of these funds or whether the person or persons involved had committed any criminal acts. As part of this investigation, the top cop says external forensic personnel will be brought in to determine if any of the money was counterfeit. The commissioner says he is aware there is a concern that a number of persons invested their hard-earned money hoping to cash in on this alleged pyramid scheme. But he assures that once persons can prove their money is legitimate, the TTPS would ensure the money is returned to them in the shortest possible time. Alicia Boucher, TV6 News.
The National Security Minister, meantime, says a complex investigation is required with regard to the alleged $22 million pyramid scheme, but it is possible charges could be laid. He said, however, that it is to be left up to the police, as he warned the public that a pyramid scheme is not a susu, but an act of fraud destined to collapse. TV6's Joel Brown reports.
A pyramid scheme is fraud. A pyramid scheme is designed to collapse at some stage.
National Security Minister Stuart Young outlining the government's concern regarding the recent growth of what the authorities have defined as pyramid schemes in Trinidad and Tobago, which have found some purportedly getting big payouts and others losing their money. The minister made mention of those who even found humor in the bring two people schemes.
I was in the office not too long ago when the young people were asking me, Minister, you bring two? And I had no clue what they were talking about. And they were teasing me and they were all laughing.
But he soon returned to pointing out the seriousness of schemes that involve participants getting to other persons to join.
The government is concerned, and now is as good a time as any to warn the population of Trinidad and Tobago. Don't get caught in any pyramid scheme. If it seems too good to be true, that is because it is too good to be true.
He was responding to a question posed to him during the post-cabinet news conference about the arrest of 9 persons, which the police said followed the Special Operations Response Team, or SORT, having executed a search warrant at a house where it was alleged that persons were operating a pyramid scheme.
That's a huge amount of money, $22 million in cash. Questions must be asked about the legitimacy of having $22 million in cash. It's not for me to play judge or jury. It appears as though the money was released back to the persons by the Horquetta Police. I spoke to the Commissioner of Police just before going into cabinet this morning, and he is conducting an investigation to find out how that happened.
Minister Young said a fairly complex investigation has to take place to find out, for example, what criminal charges could be laid if persons participated in a pyramid scheme and received receipts but are not yet victims of the scheme's collapse.
But there are possible criminal charges, and I'll leave that up to the police under the Proceeds of Crime Act and other pieces of legislation.
He said a pyramid scheme is not a susu.
As you know and as you are aware how a susu works, it's 10 of us, each of us 1 week, we put in $10. Mr. Ramdeo on the first week will get $100, but he has to continue for the next 9 weeks putting in his $10, right? So it's basically a loan and a cash loan up front to whoever. That's a susu scheme.
He recalled that the Trinidad and Tobago Securities and Exchange Commission, the Financial Intelligence Unit of Trinidad and Tobago, and the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, warning that recipients of funds from pyramid schemes may not be able to determine their true origins, which may be from illicit sources, and people should therefore avoid them. Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The National Security Minister again says the government has no plans at this time to bring legislation defining private spaces in context of COVID-19. Jewel Brown again tells us more.
After the incident at Bayside Towers, which involved the police giving a warning to those who held a private party in the pool area because they were in a private space, a public debate ensued about the issue of private spaces as the COVID-19 health regulations only speak to public spaces. At Thursday's post-cabinet news conference, TV6 News sought answers from National Security Minister Stuart Young. In terms of legal definition, how is the government looking at that? Because on the one hand, of course, the government wants to curb the spread of COVID, but then there are constitutional issues involved. How are you striking the balance?
Julius, see, since that last incident and since the last intervention into that conversation a few weeks ago, it hasn't raised its ugly head. We had conversations as well with the police, the Attorney General and myself, and I think let's just leave it there.
He said the police know what they have to do and are applying the law. On September 14th, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley held a meeting with Police Commissioner Guy Griffith, Acting Deputy Commissioners of Police Ford and Jacob, Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi, and Minister Young at the Diplomatic Centre. In response to the Prime Minister's comments on the Bayside Towers incident on September 12th, that, quote, we expect that the law will be applied to every person regardless of race, colour, creed, or class or social standing, end quote, the police commissioner said in a statement, the law as currently constructed does not diminish a person's constitutional rights as a whole, and in particular, their rights to enjoy property. He further said, quote, the Prime Minister, as the most experienced politician in the government, should know that the amendments to the law cannot be done through press conferences, end quote. While insisting the police commissioner was invited and not summoned to the meeting at the Diplomatic Centre, the police service said that the meeting at the Diplomatic Centre was very cordial and that, quote, now the emphasis will be on all parties moving forward to ensure that the public health ordinance regulations are adhered to by members of the public during the COVID-19 pandemic, end quote.
I'd like to take the opportunity to thank them and to congratulate the police service in particular for the frontline work they've been doing and their policing of the regulations. There's no area of concern or gray area with that right now. Let's leave it that way.
In terms of any potential legislation looking at the issue of private space?
Not at this time, no.
Jewel Brown, TV6 News.
Unacceptable is how President Irfan Ali of Guyana labelled the ongoing expansion works at the Chedi Jagan International Airport, calling for it to be fixed speedily so that Guyanese can enjoy what they paid for. More in this report from HGP's Wendell Badri.
On Monday, President Irfan Ali, accompanied by Chinese Ambassador Kui Jingchun, held engagements with representatives of China Harbour Engineering Company, CHEC, along with the project consultant and project manager of the airport expansion project at the Chedi Jagan International Airport, CJIA. The president noted that Guyana and the contractor entered into a fixed-price contract, which means that the contractor would have to assess all the works that needed to be done at the airport prior to signing the contract. This was in response to a representative of CHEC highlighting that after signing the contract, an assessment was done to ascertain what additional works needed to be completed.
And whatever action has to be taken, to ensure we get. I know the ambassador is committed also in ensuring we get what we bargained for, what we agreed to, and that the Guyanese people deserve.
Following the failure of project manager Ms. Carissa Gooding to provide answers to several questions, the head of state made it clear that the works done at the airport could not be accepted.
The project as it is right now is unacceptable, and I will not accept it for the Guyanese people. It has to be delivered in accordance with what was agreed.
Gooding highlighted that in collaboration with the project consultant, a list of things to be completed by the Chinese has been documented.
Decision that I will have started with the consultant, and we will have compiled a list of items, critical items, to address, because the terminal building cannot reach substantial completion. So we will have decided that in order for us to provide a reliable, functional operations, there's approximately 70 items that has to be addressed by the Chinese for the airport to function.
In 2011, the government of Guyana inked a $150 million agreement with China Harbour Engineering Company Limited to modernize the Chedijagan International Airport, after realizing that passenger movement at the airport had leaped by 42% between 2000 and 2012. The airport's runway was expected to be extended from 7,500 feet to 10,800 feet, while the airport was also expected to see 8 passenger boarding bridges, among other amenities, to add to the aesthetics, security, and overall standardization of the airport. A number of these initiatives had been revised, however, with the contractor falling short in agreements signed onto, thereby causing further delay to the project. The controversial project now spans 4 governments, starting with the signing of the contract under the presidency of Bharat Jagdeo in 2011, and continues to date. Meanwhile, Chinese Ambassador Kui Jingshun has committed to ensuring that the project is completed as agreed to in the original contract. Wendell Badgery for the HGP Nightly News.
Over in Jamaica, the parliamentary opposition there are strongly against moves by the health authorities to reduce reliance on testing for COVID-19. The health ministry says it is now considering a move towards clinical diagnosis. Details in this TVJ News item.
Under such a scenario, a doctor could diagnose a person as having COVID-19 based on their symptoms without doing a test. However, opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Murray Sky, says that would be a mistake.
The minister himself is on record to suggest that in terms of reporting of COVID, we will be adopting the method used in dengue, where only a certain proportion of the cases are actually reported. The opposition feels that this is not good public health practice. And in fact, whichever advisors gave him that information or that particular protocol is wrong.
Dr. Guy says he's also opposed to removing the requirement for pre-entry testing for persons arriving in Jamaica from certain locations.
We totally disagree with that. You see, the government is hell-bent on opening the economy. We don't have a challenge with open economy, which we think is important, but it has to be based on sound scientific parameters. If you are going to lift those requirements, it means that you're going to expose the country to more cases than we already have. And this cannot be right, because you are going to be potentially exposing the lives of our people, and in fact the deaths of our people, to increased numbers coming from abroad if we abandon this particular protocol.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.